Welcome to Two Humans Talking, the podcast where we discuss the challenges of staying healthy in today's modern, fast-paced world. I'm Tiffany Sims, your nutrition and high performance coach.
And I'm Chelsea Scroggins, your yoga teacher and motivational speaker.
And today, two humans are talking to another human, and we have Yuhdt Coles here with us. Jen is a functional medicine specialist. She's a coach, and she also has her own history. She found out at some point in her journey, we'll learn about it today, that she was gluten intolerant and that she was having a bunch of gut issues, and that has really impacted from the what I've learned about you, impacted your story and how you're helping serve others. So Jen, I know you're a SIBO coach, but I don't know what that actually means.
Yeah. So, hey, ladies, thanks for having me here.
Thanks for
SIBO. Yes. So, SIBO, I'm like already tongue-tied. SIBO stands for Small Intestinal Bacterial Overgrowth. And it's basically, in a nutshell, bacteria where it's not supposed to be. So, we normally have microbes in the large colon that helps us break down and, ferment and do its thing before, it's creating stool and all of that jazz. But in the small intestines, we don't necessarily want all that bacteria overgrowing in there. Mostly it's a sterile atmosphere. I mean, it does have its own microbiome and it needs to be balanced. But when it overgrows, it can wreak havoc on so many things. And it can look like bloating after meals, gas, diarrhea, constipation, anxiety, rashes, brain fog, all the things we could name on and on.
All the things we associate with IBS, and we just throw that word around like.
Yeah, so they're kind of, the percentage kind of ranges. It just depends on which, study you're looking at. But currently, I think it's probably about 60 to 80% of IBS are actually SIBO. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a lot. That's a big percentage.
I feel like IBS is one of those generic terms that just gets thrown around to describe any kind of digestive issues that you might be experiencing. I know for me, when I was 19, I had my first colonoscopy for IBS because I was on both ends of the spectrum. I was either one or the other.
Right.
And for me, fixing my nutrition a decade later when I got into nutrition actually helped alleviate a lot of my symptoms there. And knowing what I know now and hearing what you just shared about SIBO is probably because I corrected some of those gut issues and cleared out some bacteria, which allowed me to alleviate those symptoms.
No doubt.
Well, as you both know, nutrition is everything. I mean, that's the foundation of wellness, right? That is information that we are taking in on a daily basis. And yeah, that's one of probably the first things that I suggest to people when they come to me is let's talk about your diet, one, and two, let's talk about how you're eating that food. So eating hygiene is like a huge conversation we have. It's what I like to call the not so sexy topic of overcoming.
Talk to me about eating hygiene. Tell me more.
Yeah, so eating hygiene is basically your eating routine or like how you consume your meals. So that might look like stimulating digestion while you're even looking at your food before you eat it, right? So this is not going through the drive-through and just getting the bag of food and eating it while you're driving in a hurry and swallowing it down, right? This is about thinking about your food, looking at your food, stimulating salivary glands and, the secretions in your mouth first. Your mouth is actually the one place you can sort of relatively control your digestion because once it gets swallowed down, it's kind of doing its own thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so we talk a lot about, how many times are you chewing your food? You would be surprised. When I challenge people with this question, they're like, oh my gosh, I chew my food 5 times and then I swallowed it down with like a giant glass of water, right? But we actually be chewing our food till it's butter and then swallowing it. Right. And not having like these giant glasses of ice water because that impairs our digestive juices in the gut, right? In the stomach acid. So, there's so many things we can do to promote better digestion, sitting up straight in our chair, sitting at a table, like not curled up on the couch watching Netflix, right? Like many of us do. Or, eating on our lunch break and still working and like not really paying attention. And sometimes we can overeat by doing that.
Mhm.
Um, and what about that thing that we do where we're like standing over the kitchen sink and like eating the potato chips straight out of the bag? Like, those kind of things, when they get tweaked, can really reduce things like gas and bloating and irregular bowels. So just starting super basic is a conversation I'll have very often with my clients. Yeah.
Love that. I kind of really love that you just mentioned drinking while you're eating to wash it down, because I know that I get a lot of weird looks when I don't drink. Like, I will drink a butt ton of water if we go out to a restaurant before my meal comes. But like once I start eating, like I don't need anything to wash it down, because I know that one, I don't really like it, but two, like it's diluting my digestive juices, and it's like impairing my body's ability to digest its food. And so you just like validated my existence in a little way, because it's like, no, that is what normal, how it's supposed to function. You shouldn't
True.
be chewing and needing to wash it down because you didn't chew enough for it to actually slide down your throat
It's
and
true.
into your system. And
And you
so I
Exactly.
should
love that
also
stuff.
do
Oh, go ahead, Charles.
what I've learned in Ayurvedic, which is the nutrition portion of yoga, which is very similar to what you're doing, honestly. But obviously, they've been doing it for thousands of years, and now the West is like coming up, and they have different names, but it's the same thing. But they say ice water kills your digestive fire, which is essentially your yeah. So you want to do like room temperature water, and at first it's hard to do that. Like honestly, it's like, what, you want me to do warm water? Or but it's so much better for your digestion, because the cold will like kill that fire. And so and that's what we're not taught here. Like, you want ice water? Like, you go out anywhere, they want to put ice in the water everywhere you go, and you're like, no. And then they look at you strange when you don't want ice in your water, but it's better for your digestion if you don't have ice in your water.
Yeah,
Just one.
yeah. To your point, I studied traditional Chinese medicine, so it's very similar to that whole idea of like you want that fire stoked in the stomach to break down your food and minerals and all
Yes.
of that. So yeah, our culture in the US, especially, with this whole thing with a giant glass of ice water or even soda and all the things that we have
Mhm.
with our meals, is really counterintuitive to having optimal digestion. I mean, like when you go to Europe, they'll give you this little tiny glass and it's like room temperature water, right? And that's just like so
Love
much
that.
better. Yeah.
That's
So
my
it's
point.
not
That's
an
why I
adjustment for
prefer
people.
that.
Yeah.
What'd you say,
Chinese
Tiffany?
medicine. Hold on. I need to know how you went down the path. Actually, you know what? Let's back up a little bit, because we skipped the whole like let's get to know Jen, because I was so interested in what a SIBO coach was. Jen, talk to me about learning about your intolerances and how you even like got into this world of
Yeah.
coaching.
Okay. Well, it's a good thing we have a few minutes here because my journey's kind of long. If I start to go on a tangent, just cut me off. But basically, in a nutshell, I always like to tell the story. So I was the kid in school who was always nervous.
Mm,
And, I kind of had that like, if something was about to happen or a test I was going to take, I was kind of wound tight even as a
mm.
child, right? Kind of stressed out and anxious a lot. And I was chronically constipated my whole childhood. And my mom would give me that gross Metamucil and my orange juice every morning. But like we were eating Velveeta cheese and like fried Southern food. And,
All the
So
we
you
constipation.
were
didn't
a
know,
90s
right?
baby? Is that what you're telling me? You were like an 80s, 90s baby?
80s, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Velveeta cheese, that says it all. We had that too.
Yeah. I'm sorry, mom. No offense to you, but that
No.
probably wasn't
They
the
did
wisest
their best with
thing.
what they had, just different.
So yeah, I really struggled as a child. And then when I got to my teen years, I was just telling my own daughter who's a senior in high school this year, my
Wow.
senior year, I just got up and would like have ibuprofen and Pepto as a go-to every single morning before I went to school. And I think that was the beginning of the end for me. Like,
Right.
and kind of talking about digestive issues and really wreaked havoc on my stomach lining, and just kind of continued the cycle of constipation. And I got married. So then like I didn't want to poop while my husband was in the house. I mean, it was like
Right.
this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yep.
affected my ability to travel, do fun things. And then I had two babies back to back. So that kind of just threw my immune system and my whole like nervous system into survival mode. I was just like trying to survive, like having babies
Yeah.
so close together. Um, and then I was like in a car accident and that's what led me to alternative medicine because I was
Mm.
looking for
Yay.
pain relief. Yeah. And that's when I studied traditional Chinese medicine, learned acupressure and, things about energetic meridians and all of that. And thought that that would be my career for a while. And, that was kind of helpful, but it really wasn't doing it for me. I was still dealing with digestive issues. I found out I was lactose intolerant along the way, so I cut out
Right.
dairy. Um, Interestingly, when I found that out, I had gone to a clinic and the guy there was just like, well, why don't you try stop eating that Ben and Jerry's every night? Like, maybe that'll help, right? And then he just gave me a bottle of Mylanta and said, carry this around with you in your bag
No,
because, that's what you need to do. That's not addressing the root
not
cause
a
at all.
life. Yeah. That's a cope or
We're
that's a
really good at
band-aid.
band-aids on bullet
That's a
wounds. Like,
band-aid. You got to
Yeah,
get to the root cause.
yeah, yeah. So that kind of happened. At one point, I had a roommate, well before I was married, who found out she was celiac, and we were
mm,
like, "What the heck is that?" That was back in the late '90s. There was still no such thing as like gluten-free food at the store. I mean, it was kind of a huge deal, and I started thinking about it years later, and I was like, "I wonder if I have this thing going on with gluten. Maybe I should investigate that, right?" And it turns out that I actually took one of those tests called a wheat zoomer. I don't know if you guys know about this
mm,
test, but it's a really cool
I
test.
haven't.
Yeah, it gives you information about all the different wheat proteins, not just gluten. And it turns out I'm not actually celiac or gluten intolerant, but what I am is having an antibody reaction to several other wheat proteins. So I basically just went gluten free and wheat free after that. And that did give me some relief, but not quite, right? It still
Right.
wasn't solving all the problems. And eventually down the road, all the stress and the anxiety and the recycling of toxins from being constipated all the time took its toll. And I ended up with broken heart syndrome.
Wow.
I don't know if you know what that is. It's called
No, I
Takotsubo
don't.
myocarditis. And it's
Wait,
very,
repeat that. It cut out. I'm sorry.
oh, sorry. Is my internet working?
no,
No,
you're
it was me. I think I spoke when I was like, wow, and then, s- so what is it? What is broken
Yeah.
heart syndrome?
Yeah. It's called Takotsubo myocarditis.
that's a
Okay.
mouthful.
Basically, yeah, it's basically a stress response on the heart where it becomes inflamed and it can feel like a heart attack. I had the exact symptoms of a heart attack, like running down my arm and up my jaw and in my back and all the things. It was really scary. But
Yeah.
it's more common for people who have lost someone, like an expression of grief is how it kind of
Yeah.
shows for people, but under extreme stress. So again, I told you my story is kind of long, but
It's
I
okay. We're
ended up
here
with
for it.
broken heart syndrome and then immediately switched to diarrhea, and it was chronic.
Wow.
Yeah. So I struggled with
That's
that
hard.
for several years. And my kids at that time were like, in travel soccer and doing all the things at school. And like, I could not leave my house. And eventually I was kind of bedridden. And I just became super nutrient depleted because it was just coming out of me and like
Right.
nobody knew how to fix it, right? I eventually found a functional medicine practitioner. That was my first taste. And of course, I was sold after she had this conversation with me for like an hour instead of 10 minutes, It
Where
was
Yeah.
pretty
she looked at you as a person
a
and
person, a
not a
whole
time
person.
slot. Yeah.
And she's the one that introduced me to the idea of SIBO. And she said, you know what? Let's have you do the test. And it came back positive. So she put me on some herbs. And, I had done all the diets, you guys, all the
Mhm.
diets can ask my kids, my husband. I mean, I have been through it, and I don't know. I have this whole thing up here, and like the top shelf is all the random cookbooks that are out there, right? Because
Mhm.
I have to figure this out for myself. And
You know, I find that those of us who take a holistic approach to wellness have that in common. We tried all the things and we
Mhm.
need to go inward and stop like putting band-aid on top of band-aid on top of band-aid.
Mhm. It's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's
So I'm
very true.
actually going to get to that. I'm actually going to get to that. So I worked with this functional practitioner. I was able to clear my SIBO, and then 2 weeks later, I got the third type of SIBO, which is hydrogen sulfide, which is a little more rare and less studied, but is actually my specialty within the realm of SIBO now.
Cool.
But she threw up her hands and she's like, do you want an antidepressant? Like she didn't know.
Oh,
She didn't know what to do with you.
she's like, sorry, girl, you're the first case. I'm lost here.
You're
I'm
out.
out. Yeah.
Tag, you're it. Mhm.
So, so my kind of personality is I love research. I'm kind of a geek that way. I'm a go-getter. I'm a constantly an overdoer, recovering
Right.
perfectionist, all the things. And that was kind of what drove me to going back to school for functional medicine, and really diving in, taking all the master classes I could to learn more about SIBO. I was eventually able to overcome it and started
Good.
helping clients overcome it. And then word kind of got out. So then I just, I ended up rebranding as the SIBO coach because that became my practice. And it's really my passion because
Saved
it's
your life.
really, yeah, it was a transformation on so many levels. And it wasn't just my gut. And maybe this is like one thing I would love for your audience to take away
Mhm.
is when you have any kind of chronic illness, whether it's your gut or maybe you keep having like a knee injury, or you have this constant brain fog or that you can't overcome, or you've tried all the things, right? And to your point, the band-aids, you can have all the band-aids, but until you do what's going on in here and connecting all the dots of all the
Mhm.
things, not just the one body part, you're
Right.
gonna stay stuck. You're
Yes.
definitely gonna stay stuck. And it wasn't until I realized that I was really able to overcome and regain health.
Yeah. I say
Yeah.
that all the time. Like, if you happen to get shot, do you want someone to go remove the bullet and actually suture you back up? Or do you want someone to put a band-aid on it and just treat all of your symptoms that come after that? Because that, unfortunately, I am so grateful for modern medicine. I think it truly is a gift. And at the same time, I'm very firm and confident saying it shouldn't be the first stop when something is wrong, because
True.
you're a whole person. You're not just this one thing. Like, there's this whole body system that was designed to, you sweat when you're hot, you shiver when you're
Mhm.
cold. Like, your body is designed to take care of itself, and we
Mhm.
override its programming so much and then blame ourselves that things aren't
Mhm.
working. And it's like, you got to go back to the roots sometimes and and dig through and be patient enough for all the trial and error stuff that no one wants to deal with, because it's hard and it's frustrating and it takes time. But once you find that root cause, like you said, it's like it changes your whole entire life. And so,
Mhm.
Jen, like, what does life now, having learned everything you have and adjusting your lifestyle, look like and feel like now compared to years ago when it was you felt like you were on that like hamster wheel of frustration and diarrhea?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I would say I'm a lot more calm and confident now than I used to be. I have trust in my body's ability to heal itself, which before I was always kind of in a panic and thinking someone
Right.
else was going to heal me. I think that was a big thing that I kind of grew up with. Obviously, I have great respect for the medical community, right, of all
Mhm. Of
types. Um,
course.
and, but I realized that it wasn't going to be anybody else. It was
Nope.
me. I had to put in the hard work, right? And so
True.
now I'm able to, like I have my practice, and this is what I'm going to call a practice because I have to work on this every day, but like remembering I've got to have a balance, right? For me, I
Mhm.
like to have spaciousness. So like after a client, I go outside in the sun and I do some qigong and like release the energy, right?
Hey, yes.
Yeah. Or like after a long day, I say, you know what, kids, I'm so glad you're home and I missed you today, but I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna go play my guitar for a little while because I need to sing
Okay.
and like, express my soul and my voice, right?
Yeah,
And so I have been able to set boundaries that I didn't have before. That's a
I love
huge
that.
one.
Huge.
Setting boundaries. Yep. And as a mom, making yourself a priority sometimes is like the hardest thing to overcome,
I
right?
think as a woman, I think we're just so naturally like, oh, you nurture. So we always want to fix or help others, but we forget about ourselves. And so it's so important, like you said, to take that moment for yourself. Keep
Yeah.
going. I love hearing this
Yeah.
positive stuff.
So I think I figured out that again, making myself a priority when I hadn't for decades, right? I
Mhm.
was kind of that people pleaser, always worried, like, oh, I got to help that person figure out what their problem is before I take care of myself. That was constant.
Mhm.
And now, now it's also because my kids are a little bit older too. They'll reflect back to me, oh my gosh, mom, you seem super chill today, which is like something that they would have never have said before, right?
You're like,
I
yeah,
love
I am. High five to me.
that.
Exactly, exactly.
Proud of you. And
So,
kids notice, they pick up all the stuff. Like they just notice. If you want honesty, ask a kid. They will
yeah.
tell you
And
honestly what's going on.
and how many of the things that you do or choose not to do were originally impacted by what you did or didn't see your parents do?
That's
Exactly.
true. Very true.
Yeah, a little bit of that. I mean, I love my dad, so I don't know if he'll listen to this, but I kind of grew up with this idea of like if you were resting or taking a nap or any kind of thing that looked like taking a break,
Mhm.
you were lazy and
Mm.
you needed to get back to work. And so I still have that self-talk a little
Mhm.
bit every once in a while, like, oh, I should be doing this for my business, or I should be, creating this new recipe, or, I should be doing this
Right.
for my son, or, whatever. It goes on and on, right? But so I catch myself, and like I said, it's a practice for sure, on a
Right.
daily basis, especially for those of us who are recovering overachievers and
Mm-hmm.
perfectionists, right?
True. Every single
Overachieving,
day.
please make sure you see me and give me my sticker. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Aw,
like
it's
I need
so
a star
true.
for today so that I know that you're proud of me.
So
Exactly.
true.
Exactly. I mean, I'm one of those people that'll like make a list of all the things I have to do that day. And if I did something extra, I'll add it to the list just so I can mark it off.
But
Right?
it's
Me
satisfying.
too,
It's
girl.
satisfying to acknowledge, especially when you're staring at it and you're like, well, crap, I'm worthless. Like, what did I do today? And then it's like, wait a second, time out. Let's write all the things I actually did today. And then
And
you're
then
like, oh,
cross them
I
off.
did do something today. It just happened to not be aligned with the list I thought I was going to,
Yeah.
or I
True.
was supposed to do today.
Supposed to do. Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
huge one. So I think
true.
overall for my healing journey, obviously it was overcoming SIBO and like being able to regain my ability to absorb nutrients and all of that stuff. Right.
But the
But
stress and the
the, yeah, dialing into
expectations.
what's up with my nervous system and dialing into what's going on in my heart emotionally.
Your audio just all of a sudden, I think, switched.
Am I not on?
There you
There it
are.
is. There it is.
Okay.
So diving into your nervous system, I think that's where we were
Oh
at.
yeah. Thinking about my nervous system, what was going on in my heart emotionally, what,
Mhm.
taking inventory of my different relationships, which ones are serving me, which ones are not, right? I
Yes,
tell my clients there's such thing as like energy vampires, like stay away
true.
from energy vampires.
It's such a
Very
good
true.
book too. If you haven't read it, I can't remember who it's by, but go get it off of Amazon. Energy Vampires. It's a really good book.
Yeah, yeah, it's a thing. And I see that a lot in my practice too, where it happens more with women, but I do see it with men. just whether or not they have a support system in their life. So it could be their spouse, but it could be a different family member or like a roommate. But, on a healing journey, I find that it's like so much more successful when we have somebody in our corner supporting us and cheering us on and like helping us find new things to eat because we feel restricted or, whatever that might look like. Like, hey, let's go take a walk together. Let's have a cup of tea and have a chat. Like, let's connect. I feel like it's so important for anyone
Very.
who's on a healing journey. But yeah, I think that was key as well for me to figure out that, you know what, I'm not feeling supported in this area, so I'm gonna go find it somewhere else.
Take
I love that.
responsibility. I love that you took responsibility of that. Chelsea and I talked about that in the podcast that's going to drop next week,
Mhm.
after this one, and we talked about owning your role in the things that you want. And so I love that. And I was writing down, like, when you were telling your story, I want to share with our listeners what I heard.
Okay.
So we start, Jen's a SIBO coach, and that has to do a lot with like nutrition and nutrient absorption, and like it can be tied to weight loss or weight gain. Like it can be tied to weight management and just overall health. But
Hormones.
what I heard was when you were talking about how life was different, I never heard you once really talk about your physical body as much as it was learning to trust your own intuition and know how to listen to your body brought you confidence and peace, which allowed you to enjoy life, like going and playing your guitar or going out for a walk and just being present in the sunshine without all of the heaviness of the world that we usually carry around. And I think that that is, people go into nutrition for one, like, I need to get my nutrition under control, I need to get my gut issues under control, thinking that it's gonna like solve this one problem. And then the life that they get by just making those simple changes in the way that they're eating and consuming food gives them this whole life that they didn't know was possible for them.
True.
And so like that's what I heard in your story was like I got this, like I went from running to the bathroom all the time, constantly up with an upset stomach, to having this whole life because my brain was finally free to be present. And I was able
Mhm.
to like trust myself because I did the work to know my own body rather than just like a band-aid here, a band-aid there to get by. And I just think that that is such a beautiful message. And
Yeah.
so
And
Thank
one thing I heard was the persistence to keep going. Like you knew that this wasn't right, what band-aid you were putting on. So you knew I got to keep going. I got to figure this out. There's something for me. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to keep going. And then boom, you didn't give up. You figured it out. And now you are saving so many other lives too. So it's incredible the ripple effect of what you unlocked and what you're doing for others. So thank you so much, Jen, because we need you in this world. And I'm so grateful that you finally unlocked what you needed so that way you can have a beautiful life. Can I ask you what age you unlocked this at? Because I know in your teenage years, it was like this. When did you finally find your medicine, like your miracle, right? When did you find that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it might be a little difficult for me to put my finger on it, but
Right.
I would say that it's been a domino effect, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, during your 20s, you're kind of finding yourself and finding your voice and, discovering
Totally.
what brings you joy and that kind of thing. And then I felt like having that sort of freedom in my 20s was helpful at times, right? And then once I was married and had children, life changes dramatically. But I would have little glimpses of here and there. And I don't want this to be construed in a
Right.
negative way, but I always felt like there was more to me above being a mom and a wife. Okay. Which,
Amen.
if that's what you're doing, awesome for you because we need all of that, right? But I felt like there was more of a calling for me. And
Mhm.
so that would kind of drive me a little bit. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think having events like a heart event and a car accident, and last September while I was working on a home renovation, I blacked out and fell from 10 feet, hit my head on the quartz counter, and luckily my son
Uh-huh.
had to be home from school that day and found me and called 911. So I've been even recovering from a head injury for the past year, right? So it's always these kind of messages from the universe that keep telling me, Jen, slow the F down. Like, remember who you are and where you're going. And it's not a race, and you're going to get there. And you just keep building one thing on top of the other. And I think those types of experiences for me have been the catalyst for change.
For the next
Yeah.
chapter.
Fortunately and unfortunately, right?
Right.
Sometimes I need to be beat over the head by something big. But I think mostly it's this kind of inner feeling
Mhm.
that I deserve good health, that I'm worthy of love. And to your point earlier, you were saying, I mentioned kind of all these emotional, more spiritual things that kind of came out.
Right.
Once you kind of internalize that idea that you have the power to heal yourself, things like weight loss will eventually happen.
It just happens.
More energy starts happening because you have more nutrients and like better clarity and able to make better health choices,
Your body
right?
just finds its balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Your body has an innate ability to figure those things out if you
True.
create the space for it to happen.
It's true.
Yeah.
True.
I don't know if that answered your question, Chelsea, but I think mostly it's just been a process.
I
And
think
it's
you answered her question, because what I heard was, in my 20s, there was a thing and I learned something. And
right.
then something else happened and I learned that there was more to it. So I went a little deeper. And then something
Right.
else happened and now there's a new layer to uncover. And I think that that's really important to hear, because I know for me,
Correct.
when I achieved something and then I reverted back to old habits or something else happened, I would beat myself up like, well, I thought you learned this lesson. And it's like, no, like there were an onion and there's all these layers, and
Mhm.
everything there's no one and done. Like you're not done.
Yeah.
Every time
That's
there's
what
like,
I got from it too. It's basically we haven't really totally, you're still on the journey. And so I
yeah.
think that's beautiful, because I feel a lot of people think that, oh, if I just get there, it'll just be magical. And it's like the
And then
journey is
everything
the
will magically
magical
be
part.
perfect for forever.
The journey is the magical part. And that's what we need to remember, is this, like what we're doing right now, sitting down and just talking about it. This is the magic. It's not, oh, getting there. It's this is the magic right here. Doing the work is the magic. So that's beautiful.
So Jen, how do
100%.
people connect with you? If they want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. They can follow me on Instagram. I'm at the.sibo.coach.
And we'll drop that in the show notes as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the other way is to find me on my website, the.sibo.coach.com. And when you go to my website, there's this freebie on there for your audience members. There's a pop-up where they can, in exchange for their email, get a free eating hygiene handout and a link to a video of me, which is like a little example of my teaching style, right? Of teaching people how to improve their eating hygiene. Because again, like I said, it's one of the top first things we talk about, overcoming digestive issues. So I like to offer that to folks. And I think that's probably the best way to find me.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that we put those in the show notes. And then what's your last question? What's your life motto that you want to share with?
Life motto. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I have probably like 47 of them.
Which
Well, you can
one is
pick 3
leading
if
you
you
this
want.
week?
Yeah. I think right now in my late 40s, I'm going to be 50 next year. And I'm just like loving the
Happy
idea.
birthday.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm loving the idea of getting older because I just feel so much more powerful now. I don't know. I can't explain it. But I think my motto right now is find time for creativity, whatever that looks like for you.
Love that.
I love
That
that.
could be art, that could be music, that could be gardening, that could be creating a new recipe, that could be playing games with your kids or whatever, right? But the more I do this work, the more I see the difference it makes in people's life to dial up the joy, whatever that looks like for you. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's the motto that I'm living
Dial
by.
up the joy.
Dial up
That's
the joy.
hashtag dial up the joy. That is beautiful.
Wonderful.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Okay, well, with that, that was Two Humans Talking. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.